Welcome to our third annual Library Comic-Con event happening October 21st through the 26th. My name is Sarah. I'm an adult services librarian here at the Westland Public Library. You may recognize me as well as my fabulous collaborator and team librarian Katrin from our favorite graphic novels and our favorite manga videos of years past. If you've seen those videos, you are also well aware that we have a hard time staying focused on just our recommendations. So you're in for another treat if you like hearing about comics. Joining us this year is our fabulous new tween librarian, Amy. And Amy, we've kind of just thrown you into the deep end of this nerd culture. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Amy. So I'm new to the Westland Library. I'm new to Oregon. We just moved here in January, and I'm pretty new to graphic novels. I know about them because I've been a librarian, and I love giving them out to patrons and students. I don't read a lot of them myself, but I'm really excited to share my experience with you for reading these that we're going to talk about today.
And I think that kind of fits within our theme, because the theme this year is please read these graphic novels. These are the ones that we wish people would pick up. We recommend them. And I think as librarians, we really get caught into these books that we know people will love. Like you were just saying, I don't read a lot of them, but I know what people like. Like upstairs, I can recommend like Spy Time's Family or Junji Ito. I mean, Marvel versus DC. How about you, Katrin? Any big names that are your go-to ones?
Mostly teens are looking for manga. So I always go to like the ones I talked about last year. So like Witch Hat Allier, just like it kind of depends on the kids. So like that one, there's actually some new ones coming up. They're really great, like Romantic Killer, Nights with a Cat, which I try to push on literally everyone because it's adorable. So yeah, I have just sort of a few in my back pocket. But strangely enough, today I am doing no manga, and I'll have Western style comics today, just branching out in that way, I guess. And also, I think there are a few of these that manga lovers would like because they have similar like action and like art styles. So, we're all about branching out today. And I think the other theme that we had toyed with was you might not have heard of this. Yeah. So I was going for some lesser known ones that I actually really liked. So yeah.
That's true with me too. And Amy, what are some ones that you've kind of picked up downstairs?
Obviously, Raina Telgemeier, anything by her, people love. And then I've just been finding a lot of the tweens too, like the manga, even for the littles, they do the Pokemon books, and just kind of like the slice of life graphics. I feel like they just really reach the younger readers.
Yeah, which of course I think a lot of mine are a slice of life today too. I think that appeals to a whole bunch of people as compared to grand over time, following multi-generations. But there's comic books out there for those people as well. So we're gonna get started. I think I'm gonna have Katrin lead us today. Katrin, why don't you go ahead and give us your first recommendation?
All right. So the first one I'm going to recommend is Unfamiliar by Haley Newsome. And I actually was introduced to this artist via her YouTube videos, which I think her YouTube channel is Lavender Town. But she does like art videos and stuff like that. And she seems very sweet. And I really loved her art style. And this is kind of one of the ones I was talking about where I think it would appeal to a lot of manga readers because it's very cute. It's very witchy. And she's just got this style that is very unique. And we're also talking about slice of life. This is also very slice of lifey. So basically, the story of Unfamiliar is that there is this little kitchen witch who is moving to a witch community. And she's moved into this house that is absolutely perfect, except it is full of ghosts. There are ghosts in the floorboards. Ghosts come out of the faucets when you turn them on. Ghosts everywhere. So she's looking for help getting ghosts out of her house. And so she goes into town and she meets kind of all of these fun characters who are also not great at exercising ghosts, but they become great friends. And they do have all of them have cute little familiars. I love her her little rabbit. You can't really see him, but we'll get a picture up. He is adorable. And just kind of the artwork itself is adorable. And so it's kind of slice of lifey, just sort of like forming a friend group. This is the first one, as you can see, it still has a new sticker on it. So this is number 1, and I'm really looking forward to future editions of this one. So if you like cute, if you like slice of life, if you like low stakes but witchy, Unfamiliar is a really good one for you. That's
It's really
number
funny.
one.
That seems like the opposite of a problem. Like, oh no, there's ghosts. That seems to be such a huge theme right now in just books in general, like paranormal
Yes.
romances. I mean,
Yeah. And I think perhaps that's the way it might go, because there's some ghosts that she has some rapport with. So we'll
Okay.
see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, the ones
Okay.
coming out of the faucet seem like a problem.
And
one
is
wants
this
ghosts
a
in their
web
pipes.
comic, or is she just specifically doing just illustrating and putting her illustrations up on online, and that's how you got introduced to her?
Oh, so so her YouTube channel is definitely just like like she does drawing tutorials, or she does notebook tours, things like that, just sort of cute and cozy videos, I would say. She also has videos that I really actually like, where she draws characters from books kind of exactly how they are portrayed. And she did one for Howl's Moving Castle, and that will forever be my Howl. He looks so good. But she like annotates the whole book and goes through and draws the character, and it's really fun. So yeah, I also recommend her YouTube channel because it's super, super great. So
I'm
Double
disappointed to only
recommendation.
be hearing this now.
Yes. Please go watch her. She's great.
That information will be included in the description below, and we'll
Yes.
include the titles as well in the description, as well as links to our catalog. So you're able to access if you're a LA and CC patron, you're able to access the books from our catalog. So, well, thank you for that little slice of life, Amy.
I like it. All right. So the first book that I'm going to talk about was actually Katrin and I were looking at all of the tween graphic novels, and this one is called Salt Magic, and it's actually a collaboration by Hope Larson. She is also an illustrator, but she wrote this one, and the illustrator is Rebecca Mock, and the two of them together is just very magical. And I should have known by the title, Salt Magic, that there was going to be a very big magical influence in this book, but it doesn't start out that way. It starts out as a historical fiction. The main character, her name is Von Seal. Her brother's coming back from fighting in World War I, and he's marrying this woman that Von Seal just does not like. She wants her brother to have somebody exotic, and she wants to get away. I think they're in Kansas. I'm pretty sure she wants to get away, and she was hoping that her brother would be her way out. So it starts very normally. You would think it's just a historical fiction, and then all of a sudden Greta comes. She's called the Woman in White, and it just turns very magical, which is cool because then the illustrations that Rebecca puts in just fit so well, and you can kind of get lost in them. Like I said, I'm new to graphic novels, so for me to read the words and look at the pictures, my brain doesn't work like that. It's a lot. So this book probably took me longer than it should have. I don't know if it will come across on here, but just so much color on some of the pages and then really monotone on other pages just gives you different feels of the book. So back to sorry, I was waxing on the on the illustrations, but okay. Good, thank you, because I fell in love with it. And then I went down the rabbit hole on Hope Larson. She won an Eisner for A Wrinkle in Time, the graphic novel adaptation, and she's done some other like really slice of life books like Chiggers and All Summer Long, which is why I expected this to not have magic, but it does, and it's good that it does. So Von Seal goes on this really epic journey that you just get drawn into. Some parts were a little tense, like, oh, what's going to happen? I'm not going to give any spoilers, but it's a great book to get lost in.
You made a very interesting point, and I want to point this out to the general audience, because you said that it's so hard for you to sometimes focus on the text and then photographs or the pictures. And what's really interesting is studies have been done, and what they've kind of determined is that when you're younger, you focus more on the illustrations and then on the text, and as you grow older, you start to focus on the text and then illustrations. So
it's a skill.
It is a skill.
It's
such a
So
skill.
it's very interesting how at one point your brain starts to flip over. And I think that's why people have a lot of reluctance or have a lot of difficulties getting into graphic novels, because it is that balance of trying to not only read the text that sometimes not just dialogue, but it's very essential information. And then also read the photo, or I keep calling it photograph, the illustration. And so the fact that you say that, I think you're in good company and perfect for a lot of people who are just getting introduced to graphic novels, because it is something that takes time.
It takes
It can
time.
be beautiful. Yeah.
But it does take time. And I was just reading an article about kids that reread graphic novels over and over again. And I feel like that's why, because each time they're just taking a little bit more.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I
think
think
that's a really good point.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I really like kind of how you were talking about the sort of the visual language, about how some parts are like super colorful and some parts are really like monotone. And I think that actually like adds to the storytelling. Well, it definitely adds to the storytelling. I don't
much.
just think that. Everybody thinks that. It reminds me of another, strangely enough, of a Batwoman comic, Batwoman Elegy, and the artist is J.H. Williams III. And it does that. So like it has flashbacks in her life, and like, kind of, so it has two really distinct art styles, and one's like super graphic and one is like really painterly. It's amazing. And it kind of does that same visual storytelling that I think can be a really huge cue to some readers. Like if you don't know where you are in time, but you get used to the art style being, different for different characters or different for different time, it sort of helps kind of guide you through. So I think that's really neat. I love it when comics do that.
It was good.
Well, I'm kind of torn because originally I was going to bank off of Catherine. Sorry, I pointed that way earlier. I banked off of
I'm somewhere.
Yeah, I was going to bank off of you and go. I was going to switch my recommendations around, but I do want to mention that my third book, which I've decided to keep at third, also touches on that use of color in order to communicate. But that's a whole other
We
story.
can circle back.
We will. No, okay. I'll stick with my original thing. So, okay, my first recommendation. Well, I first want to mention, here's my little note, is that I did not intend on doing a TED Talk on current French graphic novelists, but that's kind of how it turned out to be, because all my recommendations are French graphic novelists. I was like, okay, which is really great because I didn't study French. So I don't know how to speak it. I had to get guidance on how to even pronounce the people's names. So my note is that I will not be giving you the French names. I'm not going to offend anybody with that. I will give you the English names. And then I also apologize if I do mispronounce something. Again, the spelling will be down in the description below. So please forgive me. Okay, so yeah. So my first recommendation is by Christophe Chaboute, and he's actually he's a well-known graphic novelist here in the United States. He's best known for his work Alone. He is award-winning. Back in France, he's very well known as well. This one, I don't think gets enough credit. I think when I recommend this book cover, people are kind of interested. This is the life of a park bench in a park. Whoa, spoilers. And the community that comes around that bench. So you have like an older couple, a senior couple who visit the bench regularly to eat a little pastry. You have somebody who is with their new child and they like to climb over the bench. You have skateboarders, a houseless person, and their relationship with the local security guard roaming the park. And all of these are narrated in these small little episodic panels. But I think what discourages people from reading this is that this is a wordless graphic novel. This is, in its sense, the purest form of illustrative novelization. It's extremely expressionate. A lot of these gestures, I think, really transcend narration. So you don't need to, this could like literally be in any language and you would still understand what's going on by slight lift of an eye or a kind of tense moment where somebody appears to be yelling at somebody else or looks suspicious of somebody else. Like all these little gestures in the face communicate 1,000 words that I think that we all recognize in most languages. So when I tell people this and I go, hey, you should read this, they're like, oh, I don't know. Like that sounds not my jam type of thing. And I'm like, I think
it's a quick read.
It's a quick read, but one of those, as we were saying, you might have to go through again and again just to catch these little nuances of expressions to really dictate the form. I mean, there's happiness and joy and sadness and depression and how people cope with that regardless of their stage of life. regardless of their situation. And I think it's very powerful the way that Chaboute was able to do that in just black and white form. That's all it is. So I think that everybody should pick this up. I think that it is undervalued. The reason why it's on my list is because somebody has not checked this out for a couple years, and it's starting to be flagged as something that should not be in the library anymore. I'm like, never, I'm keeping it.
Was the last person me? Because it might have been me. I'm so glad you picked this book. That I love Park Bench. I think it's again just so beautiful.
It is.
Yeah.
And that is my first recommendation. Yeah, it is beautiful. And what's really interesting is that the front cover has this little red balloon, despite the fact that there's no other color in the rest of the graphic novel. So,
Is the balloon in the rest of the graphic novel?
yes, the balloon does make a cameo.
Okay.
Okay,
Nice.
Patron, what's your next recommendation?
All right, let's see. I think I'll just go in size order today. That's weird. Also, I'm realizing that all of these are more or less sapphic romances. So interesting. That's my theme. So the next one I am suggesting, which is also a new one, is The Princess and the Grilled Cheese Sandwich by Deya Muniz. And it's lovely. It's such a sweet book. And what is really interesting about this one is that it is very autobiographical. So it's a fantasy book, obviously. But when you're reading the afterwards, you're seeing that like, oh, it's all of, it's the author, it's her wife, it's all of their friends just kind of put into graphic novel form. Because when you're reading, you're like, like they make some choices that you're like, why is the supportive best friend the only Black character? And then you're like, oh, okay, it's a real person. So I'm like, okay. But so basically it is this little fairy tale set in a cheese themed kingdom for some reason. So
Because why not?
Because why not? The main character is like I think she's gone by Duke Camembert, and the princess's name is Brie. And basically it is that Camembert cannot inherit anything from her father because she's a girl and the kingdom has really outdated laws. And so as her father is dying, he's like, if, for your sake, I want you to disguise yourself as a man, go make something of yourself in the city. And so she does. So she disguises herself as a man. She's supposed to lay low, but it's really funny that Cam is very... she likes attention, and she likes to have fun. She likes to go to parties, have a good time. And so she does end up going to parties. And the first one she goes to is Princess Brie's anti-fur kind of fashion rally. And she shows up in faux fur. So everyone's just like, and she's like, oh, this. So it's very cute that that Cam has this kind of personality quirk that sort of gets her into trouble, but also stumbles her into the path of Princess Brie. And so Princess Brie, of course, thinks that she's a guy, and they fall in love. And there's just kind of friends find out at different points, and and in the end, it's all very cathartic. So, it's all very sweet and cathartic, but there's some real, kind of grappling with, identity and stuff like that, especially, kind of on Bree's part, where she has already fallen in love with this person and then discovers that she is actually a girl, which, it's real. And they have this connection over grilled cheese sandwiches. So that's why the title, I don't know. Also cheese, just throughout the book. The thing I kind of liked about this book is that it's kind of a fantasy world, but it's a modern fantasy world. They have carriages and castles and stuff like this, but also switches.
Oh, I like that.
Nintendo Switches. And when she is deep in depression, she is just in her t-shirt on her bed with her Nintendo Switch, and it's very cute. So that is my pick number 2, just because it's a very sweet romance, kind of light and fluffy, but also just some good moments. And the art is very good. I feel like this is another one that would appeal to the manga crowd. It's got kind of this stylized art in there where everyone is very cute, lots of good fashions and stuff like that. So recommend The Princess and the Grilled Cheese Sandwich.
I'm gonna read it.
I was sold on the
Please do.
The title alone. So.
Yeah. So great. So
For
great.
sure. Yes.
Okay, Amy. What's
All
your next?
right. My second one is This Was Our Pact by Ryan Andrews. And I want to preface this with two things. I read it because, as you can see by the cover, it just looks really like it's going to be a realistic kind of story, coming of age, maybe I was thinking. Ryan Andrews was born in America, um, but he now lives in Japan. And when I read that little blurb at the end, I was like, oh, so much of this now makes sense. So it starts out with a group of kids. Every year for the autumn equinox, they send lanterns down the river. It's a tradition that their town has done forever and ever. And they tell you the story of why they do it in the book. And they never know where the lanterns go. There's a song that says they go up into the sky and they become stars. So this group of kids gets it into their head that they want to figure out where the lanterns are really going. So they make a pact, and they said, no looking back, and we're just all going to stick in this together. Well, not everybody sticks in it together. They frizzle out really fast. I was a little disappointed by them.
Come
So
on,
it
kids.
was
Yeah.
right. I was like, come on, get some gumption. But it was dark. It was at night, and the illustrations really show that as well. It's a lot of dark colors. You get the sense of motion in the river, which was just super cool for me. So then all of a sudden, this bear shows up, a bear in full suit of clothes with a scarf that his wife had made. And I was like, oh, where are we going with this? And so I thought, is this a dream? But it kept going on, and the boys were super into the bear. So I'm like, okay, is it a metaphor for something? Like, I thought that the bear would just have a teeny tiny part of the
Just a
book.
bear.
It's not
just a
just,
bear.
it is just a bear, but a main character bear. And so the bear,
Comics.
it was a lot for me, and I was relaying the book to the people that were around me while I was reading it. I was reading it at home. I was like, this is so weird. So I do have to say I almost put it down because I was like, oh, I don't know, but I stuck with it, and I'm so glad that I did. It was just, I got a little mad at the bear. He did desert the boys for a little bit, but it's okay. It all ends well. But so at the end, when I read that the author was from Japan, I was like, oh, that kind of makes sense, because I think, Sarah, you and I were talking about what is the cat book that you have upstairs?
With a
Do you
dog.
remember?
There's a lot of cat books.
There is, but in
But-
manga,
No, I
in
know.
there's well,
So there's a with dog and cats, everything fine. But then the apocalypse one, is that the one that you're talking about?
I don't remember. I just know in the tween section we have Polar Bear Cafe,
Yes.
and we have Polar Bear in Love. So I feel like this is a theme maybe with manga that I'm going to see more and more. Like sometimes just random things come in, but they make the book better, right? And they really make it stand out. So for me, it was the bear. So they go on this thing. It turns very, very magical, very surreal, but still a lot of life lessons are taught, and the boys really figure out who they are. So I would recommend this to somebody. I was thinking this might be a Raina Telgemeier read alike just by the cover. I think I would give it with a warning. It's not Raina Telgemeier. It starts out that way, but you're going to go on this huge journey and be happy for it. So I think that's how I would hand it to one of our patrons.
Raina Telgemeier with a bear.
With a bear and a lot of other magical elements, mainly the bear.
Yeah, and that's interesting that, I mean, how to describe this? And Katrin, feel free to help me out. Animals do play a large role in a lot of manga and anime.
Yes.
I
was going to say they play a large role in like Japanese folklore. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes, I would say that more so as compared to like the manhwa and stuff I read, where they have full-on characteristics, like you were saying, like they may be dressed, they may have human voices and stuff like that. And they do play pivotal roles. I mean, sometimes they're there as kind of the fun little sidekick, but to have like a standalone bear with nobody else being like magical elements, that I'm actually kind of surprised in. So because usually you stumble across like where all of a suddenly makes sense and you're like, oh, okay. So just to have that one bear is kind of very interesting. So
There
yeah.
was a little bit more magic, but the bear for sure, and it never really, not that it didn't make sense. He propelled the story. So yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Good. Okay. No, that's great. Okay. My next recommendation, and this is why I hesitated at the beginning because you were talking about, so this is Always Never by Jordi Lafebre. The reason why I hesitated is because this was also somebody that I saw online first, and they were doing illustrations and publishing them quite frequently on their Instagram pages and online. And then they published their first book, and then another book, and then this one was the one that was translated over to the United States. So I was super excited because what is very interesting about this book is it starts at chapter 20. And no, this isn't read backwards. You read it from left to right, as we do in the West Coast, in the Western states, but starts at chapter 20 at the end, kind of end of these two people's lives. It's a story of a man and a woman who meet when they're young, they fall in love, they kind of get separated, and then they live independent lives before coming together again, kind of at a later stage. And so you meet at chapter 20 when they are kind of getting back together. And then over time, you start to see that they are getting young. Oh, you can't see that at all. Sorry. Over time, you start to see that they're getting younger, and the narration goes back in time, and it makes sense. But then once you get to the end, you realize that you can read the whole graphic novel backwards. So you could read literally the first chapter backwards by panel, and then after that, start at the next page and be able to go back sequentially like that to see their life stage develop like that, which was incredibly cool. It is something that I haven't seen. There's probably tons that exist out there, but just that this does play into the role of one of the characters' backgrounds and research. So in that regard, it has the tie-in in that. But it was so incredibly fascinating. The colors, as you can kind of see in the screen up will show, is it's nice and vibrant. The illustrations are beautiful, very painterly in some aspects, as well as very loose versus very constructed and when it needs to be. The story itself between these two people, I mean, you are and aren't rooting for them because they have lived their separate lives. They want to be together, but at the same time, they've committed themselves to other people. So how does that play out and stuff like that? So if you're not somebody who likes that kind of conflict, you might want to avoid this one. However, it's a beautiful story nonetheless. So highly recommended. Again, that's Always Never by Jordi Lafebre. Again, my apologies if I butchered
That sounds very, very French.
It is.
but in the way that like just kind of like the wistful romance seems
It was. So again, it was a very like spontaneous, and then they're like, oh, and they wrote to each other for a while, and nothing. This was before phones really existed, and they didn't really connect that way. So of course you have that element of kind of old technology and old modes of communication that play into it as well. So because of course it'd be so simple if they were just like, give me your number, I'll contact you. So
right. Oh,
okay. Hey,
this is going to be the worst segue ever.
I could have set this up for
We're ready for
it. Go.
My next one is
Yay!
Cosmoknights. As I said, like it's kind of funny that everything I picked up was kind of sapphic romance, but you know.
And do you want to describe that really fast? Sapphic romance.
Oh, okay. So it's girl love.
Yep.
All lesbians all the time.
Some people don't know that. Like yaoi means boy love,
yes,
and manga
right.
and stuff like that. So if you're looking for that kind of stuff, those are kind of the
there you go
that you want to pick
I
up.
got you, lesbians. I got you. Okay, so this one is a obvious sci-fi adventure. Also a little bit based on like kind of fairy tale imagery, I want to say. So there's like princesses of planets, and there is this kind of galactic agreement where there's a tournament for the hand of the princess, and so these the knights who compete in the tournament get like basically power. Like it's you get like you marry her, but it's more about like controlling the planet. And so it's like this big televised competition, and everyone has like their badass suits of armor and stuff like that to fight for these princesses. And it starts with a character who is her best friend and first crush is the princess of her planet, and she helps her escape. And then years later, she meets these two who are kind of con artists, where they have entered the tournament. They just continually enter tournaments for these princesses. And, when they win, and they often win because this girl here, she is like super powerful. She has this awesome suit of armor, a definite like Herbo vibe, so like a Xena, just like very, very buff, very good looking. And so like a lot of times like she is mistaken for a man by the other competitors, so they call her him during the competitions. But basically what they're doing is they're winning competitions, they're getting the princess's token, and then they're just helping her escape. They're setting her loose into the galaxy. She can move on and find a good life. And actually, it's really funny that you mentioned this about Park Bench, but I brought this out because it hasn't been checked out. So, come on.
It's such a great cover.
I mean,
It's so great. Look at that. So this is number 1, and number 2 came out recently. So it's just kind of getting started, but it's a great story. It's super fun. And it does have like lots of like complex relationships, a lot of plot twists that you don't see coming that I'm not going to tell you about. And it has like, it has really good representation that's not, it's very natural. Yeah. Like I feel like it has really good like trans representation in here. The trans character that you first meet is like, obviously like it's not built around her identity, but she's pretty awesome, but also she's super shady. Like you're like, what is this woman's deal? I have no idea. So she's a great character, and I think it's just kind of not harped on that, like, oh, she has to have a trans storyline. No, she's just her person, and the person she is shady. And we love that about her. So yes, so this is my recommendation for people who like action, with just like a little bit of romance, a lot of kind of like interpersonal turmoil, and just like a motley crew doing their best in the galaxy to make their way in the galaxy. So that is my did I say it was by Hannah Templar? It's by Hannah Templar. Words and art. So yeah, which actually I think all of mine that I chose today were just one creator. So there you go.
Great.
Yay.
Creative. There we go. I'm so creative in that. No, but again, go check this out because
please.
I understand people they want to read the popular stuff because that's what everybody else is talking about. There's fandoms based off of that. You don't have to beg another person to read it, but it's one of those that I think you will really enjoy if you just give it a chance, and maybe you can create your own fandom, or maybe this will be the place for you to find your belonging type of thing. So
yeah. Also, again, the art is lovely.
Gorgeous.
It's got just kind of that very kind of modern aesthetic, just kind of like not quite manga, but it has a lot of manga influences in it. Like most of us who grew up drawing manga and then decided to find our own art style, and then we're like, oh, you never really leave it behind.
It's yeah,
just makes eyes so easy.
And it's so cute.
It is cute. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, Amy.
Right,
How about
my
your
turn?
next? Yep, your last recommendation.
My last pick. Okay. I'm really excited to show you this cover. Katrin and I also decided on this one together. It's Gnome and Rat by Lauren Stohler, and it's actually brand new. I don't think people are going to have I think people are going to hear about this one because it's adorable. Like Gnome just kills me. Sorry, I was just staring at him for a second. His little cheeks.
So round.
It's really
They're
cute.
adorable.
So this is from our kids graphic novel section. And the first thing that I noticed about it, besides the colors, it's really colorful. It's divided into chapters. There's 5 chapters in this book, which I think is so cool because you're just giving kids that confidence that they're like, oh yeah, I'm reading a chapter book. And each chapter had its own very distinct little thing, but most of the book revolved around Gnome's hat. Main character right there is Gnome's hat, and it's just the different adventures that they go on, what a big deal his hat is, what does he do if he doesn't have his hat, like does that make him less of a gnome? Does he have to try to reinvent himself? He's doing all of this with his hat, with his little sidekick, Rat. They live together in the cutest little house, and Rat is super duper cynical. And always just like, are you sure about that? And Gnome is just like, yeah, and just very happy. It's a super cute book. A second one is already slated to come out, I think it might be 2024, but it's going to be a series. And I think that everybody should read it, whether you have kids or not. I think it's adorable.
This
That's all I
feels like a new age of Frog and Toad. Like
Yes.
it's very much like the spiritual progeny of Frog and Toad. Yeah.
You're so right. Good. Yep. Good
Love it.
connection.
Yeah. There
Yeah.
you go. Recommended for lovers of Frog and Toad.
Yes.
If you like the odd couple, do it.
They're
I know.
definitely an
like
odd couple.
the art in that was what just it killed me. Like it's so round.
Very round. Yes.
Here comes a shot. Admire that for a second. Okay, welcome back. Okay. Well,
Another great segue I
Yeah.
feel is coming up.
no, I won't even try to hide it. Okay, so if you've seen me in years past, if you've joined us in years past, you'll know that I usually have something with a content warning. It's unintentional, and it's very interesting because I don't normally read things with content warnings. It's just in graphic novel, I seem to put up with it. So if you have troubles with, what is it called? This is the mic ring kicking in. If you have, no, if you have problems with miscarriages, this is the time where you're going to want to skip to the end. I will give you a second. Okay, so my next recommendation is by Ingrid Chabbert. I hear that's kind of like Colbert, and Carol Morel. It's called Waves. This book, as I said, is about it's biographical. It's about one woman's struggle with getting pregnant and then ultimately a miscarriage. And so it is very heavy. It is very beautifully illustrated at the beginning, well, throughout, but at the beginning there is tons of color, and you will see screenshots, but for my colleagues here, there's tons of color. It's beautiful. This family is starting anew. She and her wife have been trying to get this for ages. The woman has wanted to have a child since she was a young one, and then she miscarries. And so it's her struggles with this. And then towards the middle of the book, after this happens, everything turns black and white. And so it's her struggling to find light again. You'll start to see pieces as people help her. Pieces of color, pops of color start to come up until ultimately her world is full of color, albeit maybe a little muted, but it's getting there. It's one of those that nobody wants to read for obvious reasons. That's a sad topic. It's a heavy topic. It's something that most people, unless they're dealing with it or have dealt or helped with somebody with it, reads, because it's a great way to understand the language that people are using, what not to say when you're talking to somebody who has lost a pregnancy and stuff like that. But it's something that, gosh darn it, I just wish more people would read, because it is so beautiful. It's just the way that they use colors, the way that they use illustrations to express themselves, and the story is not only very personal to them, but I think can really help you connect with other people experiencing this in your life. So with that said, again, Waves, I highly recommend it. Please, it is a good cry. It's beautiful. It's a good cry, but it is heavy. So make sure that you have like ice cream and your potato chips, something that will help you through this, a good friend to call in week 2. So I told Amy, I'm just like, nobody will read this because they don't want to cry. She's like, I like a good cry. So if you like a good cry, this would be the book for you. So on that note, welcome back to those who skipped that terrible book.
As we all are sitting here like
it was beautiful, but yeah, go ahead.
I do love kind of that practice of like color storytelling. There was like another one that I thought was by a French author, but it's by a Belgian author, sorry, called Elle's. like the name Elle, but
Okay.
parenthesis S, and is a girl who has dissociative personality disorder, and kind of like all of her different personalities have a different color.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah, and it's really kind of interesting, and it's, you know, it can be kind of fun, and it has a little bit of like a fantasy element, but it is kind of dealing with the you know, kind of like identities in a different way. And I'm sorry, I don't know if that is like the updated terminology for that. But it's still kind of like a great use of, like, you know, this kind of art style that I think is seems to crop up a lot in like European comics that I'm really appreciative of. And I think that's why, you know, I was kind of like instinctively looking for color this go round, and I think maybe that's why I chose a lot of Western style comics, is because, you know, when manga is primarily black and white. There's actually a lot coming out recently that I've noticed is actually in color, like Romantic Killer and Abandoned Empress, but typically it's kind of a Western wheelhouse.
I would say anything that's that's really interesting that you said Romantic Killer, because that actually started as a webcomic. And so again, I find that if it's a webcomic, it will be published in color because that's how it was online. And so I think that that's why we're starting to see a difference. Again, you see a large part of this in manhwa, which is Korean comics for Amy and for everybody there who year after year has to listen to me talk about webcomics. But exactly. So it's one of those things that I think is very interesting, because I do like the skill that's used in manga with like Katrin, specifically your dots to designate like shading and cool effects, lines to really accentuate that. Now color is really starting to make a bigger play in manga specifically, but of course this has been something that's been done regardless of where it is for years. Like the use of color is very powerful, and we've talked about like the use of lines previously to express like franticness, like with something killing the children and stuff like that. So I would like to see a lot of, it's expensive, I understand, so, but I do like to see color in graphic novels because I think it is worth it. So
yes,
I want to jump in on the color thing. And so your book, Sarah, the waves that you just talked about, I feel like obviously a heavy topic, but when you started talking about how they added color in, that just gave me a sense of hopefulness that I don't know if you could have had that in just a text novel.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't have felt the same. So I kind of like that we have options to read about different things that, yes, they may be heavy, but we also do want to read about them, and just that you can find comfort in graphic novels where you might not find that same thing in text.
No, and I think that's very interesting because a lot of times we're able to gloss over stuff that makes us feel uncomfortable. And especially unless the book is about it, like maybe this happened to a character in a book, you're able just to quickly scan over it, and then it becomes kind of a reoccurring theme, but you get to ignore it. Whereas this, I mean, even as if the book was centralized around this topic, it's kind of, you don't understand until you're seeing somebody, like a face to an experience. I mean, this is true in a lot of aspects of graphic novels versus books. I mean, diversity itself, a lot of people got very mad that Hermione Granger was played by a Black woman on stage, and J.K. Rowling came out and said she was never Black. I never said that. I just said she had curly hair and X, Y, and Z. And so there's some things that we're able to gloss over because we are reading it in text and it's only mentioned once, whereas in a graphic novel, it's just there all the time, and it's very hard to ignore that point when it's or it's not ignore. It's better enjoyment when you get to see this all the time, because you know, it's not always negative, it's just our personal preferences. We're filling it in with people that we're familiar with, or like a screen adaptation happens and you're filling it now in with your characters, whereas graphic novels, you're like, no, I get to keep this character's idea in my head, and that's beautiful. So anyways.
I think on that with like color association in graphic novels, it seems like it sort of has the same function as like music and visual media in like movies and stuff like that, where just the introduction of a color can really like elicit an emotional response. Like it seems like in waves, that's kind of thing, like maybe like a certain color is like associated with something, just sort of like a certain like piece of music is associated with something, and can sort of like just get to all of the feels all at once very suddenly, and you might not even like consciously know what's happening, but you see the color yellow and suddenly you're crying. You know, something like that. I really like appreciate that. I think it's such a fine art form when an artist can do that. I just, chef's kiss. Love it.
Okay. Well, that's the end of my recommendation. I want to give anybody else the opportunity to say anything else about comic books.
I'm going to jump in and just say
Yes.
I'm a fan. I'm going to start reading them more, and I think I'm going to be one of those people that reads them over and over because I go so fast just to devour it, and then I like to go back and just kind of, make a full meal out of it because they can do that for you. So it's nice.
And completely encouraged. So
Yeah, I love that.
yeah, I
And
definitely love it.
like I think we always say in all of these videos is that there is a graphic novel out there for everyone, no matter what kind of thing you like to read. If you like the good cry, if you like just fluffy romance, if you like something, just like without words that you could just like muse over and just kind of like look at, doesn't even have to be linear. It's just sort of an experience, and there's an experience for everyone. There is comic books, obviously, for people who love action movies,
Pulp, so
and
westerns, if you like westerns.
yeah, exactly. There's always going to be a comic book or an art style that appeals to you. So, get out there and just try to find it, and we will help you, obviously. If you have a movie or a type of book that you love, we would love to match you up with a graphic novel that has that same feeling. So everyone can read graphic novels. Please do.
Everyone should read graphic novels.
Everyone should read graphic novels.
Yes,
absolutely.
Let children read graphic novels. It's okay to read graphic novels. If you want to get through your reading list, they count towards your book and of your goals. I mean, what else can we say? Well, I want to thank you all for joining us in this general discussion on why you should be reading these books. Why aren't you reading these books? We'll work on the title and close edits, but but I want to thank you.
Circle around.
Yeah, I hope you all have the chance to join us for other Comic-Con, Library Comic-Con events. This includes Cooking with Comics. You'll see my face again. We will also be having a library takeover Library Comic-Con takeover, the library event. This is on October 26th, Thursday, October 26th, where you're encouraged to come and dress up in costumes if you want, but we'll have trivia. We'll have comic book exchanges, chances to win prizes, such as the Book Nook, little book, what would be a good way of describing them? Scenes, little book scenes. I'll put
bookshelf scenes.
Yeah, I'll put a little dioramas. There we go, book dioramas, and more. So again, please join us on October 26th. And otherwise, enjoy the rest of your comic book experience. Happy reading.